Hello and welcome to The Quest on Rajya Sabha TV. I'm Rakhee, Bakshee. In this show, as you know, that we bring you leading personalities. Through them, you understand what's happening around us in society. Also through them, we understand the situations, the stories that they produce here, also the vision and views that these leading personalities have. Another very special guest with us in the studio on Rajya Sabha TV on The Quest today, somebody who heads the National Commission for Women, Miss Lalitha Kumaramangalam. I welcome her onto the show, ma'am.
Good morning.
It's been some time now, and when you look at the mandate of National Commission for Women, you would say the idea is to actually strengthen women, but we also know there are challenges in terms of how things are around us, around women. We know, I mean, we'll go into detail later, but let's say the kind of violence, the kind of everyday challenge that women have, how is NCW actually addressing that?
See, the violence that we talk about generally in public is just the tip of the iceberg. The biggest problem against women is the lack of choice that they have. A choice to be born, a choice to be educated, a choice to be married, when to have your children. The problem is that still Indian society is very patriarchal in its outlook. And women are still merely, in most places, considered objects. People don't look at us as individuals. We are women, meaning we are somebody's wife, somebody's mother, somebody's sister, somebody's sister-in-law, somebody's bhabhi, whatever. But very rarely are we considered as individuals who are strong enough and competent enough to make our own choices. Now, yeah, every human being makes mistakes. It doesn't mean that when you make a choice, every choice may be right, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the freedom to do it. Actually, the thing is the lack of freedom that Indian women have in this society. And I'm not talking about sex here. I'm talking about the right to live your life the way you choose. You want to be a mother, you be a mother. You want to work, you work.
So do you think addressing that kind of mindset, which we have actually been struggling to address, has really, is there a pattern change? Do you see any shift at all?
There is now a change. It's coming very slowly, but the change is happening. For example, it is now accepted that women should be safe in public spaces. Pehle kya kehte, people would say, ki, why is she out in public? Now people are beginning to say, yes, if she's out in public, she must be safe. For example, yesterday we launched, that is Nitin ji and Menaka ji and I were there. We launched these apps in the buses, the safety button, which would be there for every seat. And people were asking me, why do you have these? So I said, look, it's not a question of merely the camera or the, the recording or the button being there. The fact is that it's a deterrent. Men who try to act smart with women and do what they shouldn't do, most often they do it because they think we can get away with it.
I would like to ask you here that how then one actually again tackles problems and deeper problems like sex selection, because you talked about how to be born and how to live and how to educate oneself. That's where some of the problems start, and we have seen some of the bad examples also happening.
Yes, we have. Especially Delhi, it has some very high rates of female feticide. Contrary to what people think, it's not only in the villages. But anyway, the central government's program Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao has come up with some very simple but very effective ways of tackling it. And I am told that in certain districts in Haryana, there have been surprisingly good results over the last 1 year. The male-female ratio has gone up by about 60 to 70 points, which is a huge jump in 1 year. People expected it to go up by 20, 25, but we are very happy to, announce that there has been a huge change. NCW is now conducting a pilot project for training of Panchayat women members and leaders, not just pradhans, members and leaders, not only in, ki ye kaam karna chahiye, but actually how to conduct the Panchayat, hold meetings, what a Panchayat meeting means, what are the programs available, who you can go to ask for money.
We are actually talking about real and genuine empowerment, as you rightly said. But coming back to that question, and if you look at the tests, and as you rightly said, not only in villages, but in urban areas, we're seeing some of these, sorry to say, malpractices happening. And something that, sometimes feels uncontrollable because there's a law also. But, how much it can be tackled and how? Really?
You see, the problem also is human greed. People want to make money. And people think that having a boy means you can make money. The mindset has to change a lot. People look as women, even today, women are looked at in this country as a burden. Paraya dhan, all this nonsense that is, looked at, it's a very patriarchal mindset. It's a very controlling mindset that women must be controlled. Almost every problem you can think about that women face in India has arisen from this patriarchal mindset. But the mindset is slowly changing. People are beginning to understand that if you educate your daughters... So as an institution, do you see that happening in the sense that how many women who were maybe scared earlier are coming forward?
Things like that?
In many ways, if you empower a woman, she is able to stand up on her own feet, violence automatically decreases. See, the biggest cases of violence, the most in number and severity that we see are domestic violence, not rape, not other forms.
Very true.
And domestic violence is very hidden.
Very true.
Really, there are very few statistics to tell you.
We have looked at surveys like these.
Yeah, and what I can tell you is that about 70% of the complaints to the NCW are about domestic violence, not rape, etc. Rape is there, but most of it is domestic violence. And there are many.
Do you think it gets reported well? Do you think that's an area?
If women feel that they can get some support, they come out and report it. Because I think this generation of women is now fed up of all that has been, of all that they're being forced to face. In the earlier days, you had a joint family system where with the good, with the bad, there was also the good. You had a buffer system. Today, that has gone. So women are really tired. They have to work. They have to look after their children, they have to look after their families. And
for example, in urban areas, how single women sometimes have problems, how to survive, women who've come from other areas, migrated, I mean, all these
and the problem is that we look at single women in India as only divorced or widowed. There are many, many categories of single women in India who should have the same rights as any other women. In fact, women itself in India are not supposed to have too many rights, or at least societally. Under the law, women have a lot of rights. We are equal in the constitution. Every right that a man has, a woman has. We are human beings first, then women. But as long as the mindset still exists, women will have problems.
So in a multi-pronged manner, ma'am, I would say as an institution, and of course the government has a lot of schemes that we know about, how is it really going to address? This looks like a huge problem. If you look at when internationally, and sometimes we address it, how some of the nations look at us and think that, there's a lot of fear.
Yeah, but that is, I think, also where we are wrong. India, there is not a single country in this world where men are equal to women or women are equal to men. Not a single country, including the so-called extremely advanced countries. In India, when we talk about rape, per capita rape in India is much less than what it is in America and Sweden. These are the two countries with the highest per capita rape figures. But then people don't talk about it because they presume that the so-called developing countries have worse problems with regard to violence. Every country in the world, women are facing domestic violence. We have horror stories from all over the world, including India. But we are here to talk about India and address the problems in India. I can tell you one thing, that with growing awareness, with rising levels of education, as women are able to economically stand on their own feet, violence is decreasing.
And that will come with a lot of rights. So let me ask you another question about these rights that women should have. For example, in rural areas, these property issues, the land rights that women have on paper, but they have all kinds of problems, whether it comes from societal...
It's not only rural areas, it's also urban areas. What happens is that under the law, women are supposed to get equal property under the Hindu law. But other laws are not codified. As you know, there is a great demand now from women from the Muslim minority community also asking for equal rights. Which is fair enough because under the constitution they should be given it. But that's a different question. The point is that most women are not aware of the laws. What are women told that when we marry you off, we gave you so much jewelry, that is your share of the property. And women don't know to say, I don't want so much jewelry, instead give me my share in the property. What also happens even in so-called big families, educated families, what do the brothers tell the sister? That we'll break off all relations with you, you won't have family left, etc. So out of fear, women give in and sign the papers saying, okay, I don't want my share in property, or they don't demand their share. Now, women need to get over this. We should stop being embarrassed to ask for our rights. It's not, we're not doing anything wrong.
But that's also equally related to this whole matter of dowry, ma'am. Look at some of the areas specifically.
Well, and one says that a girl who gets married today will become a mother-in-law sooner or later. According to me, there are enough women also who are part of the patriarchal system. It's not only men. Women also ask for dowry for their sons, which is wrong. If you're willing to ask somebody for dowry and pay the dowry, then you're wrong. Both are equally wrong. Because it devalues a woman. According to me, it devalues the man also. Why do you have to buy a groom for your daughter? Don't you think she's good enough to get a good groom?
I hope a lot of people are listening to all this and take some notes also. But talking about empowerment again, and you know how women in all sections, including media, are working, but how much equal pay that they can ask for, all equal arrangements?
Yes. Unequal pay, I think only about 70% is what the pay women get in with relation to women, with relation to men all over the country. In agriculture, it's much less. And in many places, women are hardly paid at all. And I'm not talking about housewives, etc. When you talk of even domestic workers, you will see that men get paid much more than women. and parity of pay is there. I don't think, you know, people can consciously do it, but women themselves also accept lower pay because they don't have a choice. Poverty hits women most sort of the worst manner. And as we say in English, women are the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
So they are the ones who get affected by anything, whether it's drought, whether it's flood,
so what's the solution, ma'am? How can we look at the roadmap?
I think in the long run, there are 2-3 things that we must think of. One, every girl must be educated to at least 10th standard. Secondly, women must continue to say that I will work, those who want to, and that I must be given responsibility. You know, it's easy to say, okay, I'll give you a job. But how many women are actually there in positions where you make decisions? Whether it's in politics, whether it is banking, whether it is media, whether it is in education. How many women are actually in decision-making positions? Till we can influence policy, women will always be second-hand citizens. Look at anywhere in the world.
Yeah,
if Hillary Clinton wins, and we are in 2016, if she wins, she will be the first woman president.
And that we talk about a developed country like USA.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying, that women, patriarchy is not just confined to India. But yes, comparatively, Indian women do not have it good. Partly, we also need to not only educate our women in terms of school education, but awareness. Women must be made aware of their rights.
But we know the dropout rate, especially in schools in all states and surveys come, we know that there are many angles and many layers to it.
Most of the dropouts are between the age of about 10, 12 to about 15. And 90% of the girls will say, and their families will say, that as the girls achieve menarche, that is once they get their periods, people are afraid that they will be, you know, teased and general all sorts of sexual things. And they're also afraid that, you know, when they go to school, we have this terrible custom in our country where, you know, people don't even talk about it. You're considered unclean and all that, which is very wrong. Now, I think the government, state and especially the central government is consciously trying to say that this discrimination should not and cannot exist, because women's empowerment is also about respecting women.
Exactly.
It's not merely
in totality.
Exactly. It's respecting women. If you respect a woman, you will give her her rights automatically.
Yeah.
The fight is not just about rights. The right also to be respected, that I am a woman, I deserve respect.
Yeah.
Whether
we'll talk about many such issues. We're going in for a very short break out here, but so many issues actually to address, and that's what she's trying to answer and address also here in this conversation. We are talking right now to Miss Lalitha Kumaramangalam. We'll continue to do that even after this very short break that we're taking here on the Quest on Rajya Sabha TV. Don't go away. Many interesting notes that you can take home also for. Hello and welcome to this second part of the Quest on Rajya Sabha TV. Once again, we are talking to Ms. Lalitha Kumaramangalam right now on many important issues, looking at again health area and talking about the range of issues, whether maternal health, how it's affected to infant mortality and all these range of problems. I think the government is trying to address it, but it's a huge problem and challenge to actually address. What's really going on in a sustained manner and in a realistic manner?
You know, the problem is that issues around maternal health or health of women, they're not considered sensational enough. So the real figures that are out there, the changes that have happened, are not being really presented before the public. There are 2-3 big programs which have been in many states. One, of course, is the noon meal scheme, which is addressing malnutrition, etc. One is institutional deliveries in this country across the board have gone up. They have really gone up very high. There are states where I think institutional deliveries are almost the norm. And now, because rural women are also being taught that you can go to get you should go also to have your children in the PHC, the primary health center, which is the first, you know, call of this thing of people in the village. And the Asha and the Anganwadi workers have been trained, and they are, I think we have a huge, it's like an army almost of workers.
They are doing the groundwork.
They are doing a lot of good work. Yes, there are still problems, but relatively that is an area where we have improved.
You know, talking about some of the grave problems, and I'll now come to that, is that, you know, of course, one issue which has really been talked much about in media and questions have been asked to the minister as well, is within marriages, as you talked about, there are sometimes those complicated problems, and marital rape is one thing which has been talked about. What would you say about that?
Look, according to me, rape is rape. Whether I don't think any man has the right to force a woman to have sex with him if she doesn't want to. Now, the cover of marriage should not be used as, let's say, like we say, a fig leaf. It should not be a kavach to allow him to be, it is a form of violence and it should not be allowed. However, Indian women also themselves have to understand that to protest against something like that is not wrong. We are taught that marriage is sacred. Marriage is sacred, but it has to be sacred for both partners.
True.
There has to be a level of equality. You cannot, you don't hear of women raping their husbands. And I'm not saying it as a joke. I don't mean to offend anybody. But the fact is that rape is an exercise of power, actually.
Yeah, true.
You know,
that's how it should be viewed as.
Yeah, and it is wrong. Even within marriage, it is wrong. Given the Indian social conditions, it may be very difficult to actually first bring in a law. Secondly, to even see whether the law can be actually implemented. But that does not mean that we should not at least start discussing the issue today and look at, if necessary, coming up with a law that protects women.
Yeah. For example, how juvenile justice, of course, was debated,
Yes.
but has come into, now the rules
Yes.
have been released. I mean, how would you look at that as to how it's really going to
See, I think the rules, this JJ Act, the amendment in it was extremely well thought out. Everybody's opinions were taken on board, and it is very clear that everybody, you know, it's not a blanket provision to say that any boy under 18 or up to the age of 16, between 16 and 18, will be told that you've committed a heinous crime. But it will stop the use of many juveniles to commit crimes by adult criminals who are actually doing it like almost like a business. It also will deter youngsters from going into the sort of crimes blindly, because what are they told? That tum to bach jaoge. These youngsters, I would say,
and that's the whole idea, you think?
Exactly.
Okay.
I would say that, and also I think the under the thing, the remand homes, etc., there are certain conditions as to how the children are to be treated, what sort of counseling, all of that, what sort of psychological
because you know there is
support
another
they
point of view
need.
also, and how it was debated and also argued.
Yes,
by.
it's a very heartfelt debate, and both sides have their points. But this law is very clear. A juvenile does not necessarily and will not necessarily be tried as an adult. But yes, the board has the right to decide if the crime is heinous enough and they think that the child, despite being 2 years younger or how many ever years, can be tried as an adult.
Okay, another point of sexual harassment, which we've been talking about it on all the sessions, all the interviews, but look at some of the big names which come up, and that's where sometimes the problems and complications arise. How you're looking at sexual harassment at workplace, very seriously.
Sexual harassment at the workplace, most people don't know the law. Women don't even know that under the law what actually constitutes sexual harassment. The other thing is that National Commission of Women feels that, you see, again, sexual harassment is an exercise of power. It's a senior officer who's harassing a lower officer. And sometimes when you have the top officers doing this, whether in terms of language or behavior, it's very difficult to actually get justice for the woman. Because most of the people in the internal complaints committee will be either junior or at par with that senior officer. And they normally don't have the guts to take the stand that, yes, this was sexual harassment. So very often that gets covered up. Currently, there's only one outside member. The commission often feels that we should ask for, a few more outside members, and it's a very small panel that is required, and it's even numbers. It's 4 people that you require. What we feel is that it should be expanded so that you have more people from outside, so that if a really senior person in an organization, for example, in the Pachauri case, it was finally public opinion that really pushed it, despite some very heavyweight people being members of the board. And thank God for public opinion.
Organizations are now really increasingly making those committees which is mandatory? Because
no, there's still a lot of lacunae, but surprisingly, the government has set up more ICCs in their organizations and their departments than the big private companies. There are some who have done very good work in this area, but there are also many people who have not yet.
Since you talked about empowering also at the local level politically, and of course we are still talking about women's reservation bill, and really hoping, how do you really look at the political empowerment both at the tiers that we are addressing?
Whenever we talk to any panchayat members who are women, they tell us that if we had not had reservation, we would never have been given this chance. Now, I agree that women should be able to compete on an even playing field, etc. But given the fact that the playing field is so uneven, without reservation, the capacity that we have built up at the grassroots level, especially at the panchayat level, it's being wasted in a way. We need to have women's reservation also, so that women from, grassroots can come up and become MLAs and eventually, hopefully, MPs also, so that the aspiration of the grassroots women are also reflected, and so that the women's point of view is taken on board.
Ma'am, as the society, and we will now address this whole socio-psychological problem that as the society is evolving, we have working women, we have women of all kinds coming up. How, let's say, an institution like NCW is looking at those patterns where you have traditions and you have those areas of development where women find themselves in. So some of the complications are coming from that. For example, sometimes we hear that some panchayat said don't use mobiles, so dress like this. So some kind of other farman comes.
That is a very patriarchal, regressive mindset. That's again, like I said, it's a question of trying to keep control over the woman. It's a question of saying that, the assumption is that if she has a mobile, then she'll have the freedom and will be able to access information and give information in turn. That will eventually see that the man can't control the woman.
And for example, on social media, how sometimes, it has both sides.
Social media has, I think, both good and bad. You can be trolled, but men are also trolled. But yes, on social media, unfortunately, I think the use of language, I sometimes feel, is a little too rude or strong, or too many sexual innuendos, etc., which is wrong. I think social media people must learn to be more responsible and more respectful. You may not agree with what somebody says, but you don't have to be disrespectful or use vulgar words in order to, give them a response.
And, let me ask this very, very important question. This whole idea of giving more teeth to NCW, remember when we began talking initially, and this is one major issue which is being talked about. How are you looking at it, hopefully?
Hopefully, we hope that, we will get a little more teeth, as you say. But yes, sometimes, we regret the fact that we really don't have more teeth, because ultimately, often we end up being a recommendatory board. And if we did have more teeth, it would be able to.
It's been some
under the mandate. It was an act that was set up by Parliament, so it has to actually go through all the various bureaucratic thing and of course the political thing, and then go to Parliament for it to be changed. We are actually not asking for parity even with some of the other commissions. What we are saying is that at the very least, on occasion, we should have the right to be able to recommend arrest of a particular person to the magistrate. The magistrate has to do the arresting. No commission can have the police of the powers of the police, because then the entire judicial system will get totally wonky, and that's not going to work out in the long run. But we must also be able to, impose some sort of fines, etc., on people who do not obey our summons. For example, we have sent summons to many people, and sometimes they do reply, they come, etc. But often,
but
because
there's this grey area,
yes, it's a very grey area. So, it's not that we want to threaten anybody, but because given the prevailing mindset, yes, and we try to be as, without taking any sides, as objective as possible.
Yeah, one area which we should not, or we should address also is, we were talking about the current situation as we are in this heat and summer. We're talking about farming community and how women farmers sometimes face problems.
The NCW has now taken up an initiative with a lot of other NGOs and other, I think, UN Women, etc., where we are looking at recommendations that will be given to the government to include women's names in the patta, in the agricultural land thing. Now, there is a program that is being done in Gujarat where they are talking to patwaris. They are the ones who write all the, the thing. And apparently it is doing pretty well. But again, the fact is that women have to be trained to ask. What we are saying is at the time of marriage, we are suggesting, at the time of marriage, you add the wife's name to the, the patta that is on that document. She's a co-owner. So that if the husband, God forbid, dies or for some reason he is, incapacitated, etc., she is not left orphaned, literally, to fend for herself. Because just recently, I've heard of a couple of stories where women farmers have had no choice but to turn to sex work because they are illiterate. and with no income, how do they look
Isn't
after
that a
their children
disturbing
and family?
story
It's
that we
very
read?
disturbing. It's very disturbing, which is why we are saying that women must have their own share in property. If they are not given property from their parents' house, in the marital house, it's not as if she's asking for anything great. Make her a co-owner of it, especially agricultural land, then at least she has something to fall back on.
And then, of course, housing, which happens, you know, the access to housing that should also be
that's
there.
why I have started telling all young girls that when you start earning, don't buy jewelry, buy yourself a one-bedroom flat. That will give you much more security
So the
and a
crux
sense
of the matter that we are discussing here right now is that it will come at both levels as we are looking at this whole idea of equity and justice, is that how there are laws and maybe much more maybe needs to be as situations arise, but also as to how women also kind of really look at
I
that.
think the women's laws in this country have been changed a lot in India. We have some very, very strong laws. Implementation, yes, we falter. But as women learn more about the laws and become more confident and are able to stand on their own feet, are educated better, are given a choice to make decisions, wrong or right, give us that choice, you will find that patriarchy will decline, that Indian women will be able to, you know, command respect. Many of us already do.
The final one line, as I call it, and I ask all my guests on the quest as to what is this quest for the woman today coming from you, Ms. Lalitha Kumaramangalam?
Well, I would say that as a woman, I would ask for respect. I would ask for the freedom to make my own choices. Equality is, you know, is more, sometimes it's like a dream. No two human beings are equal, whether they are woman or man, or two women or two men. So, but I would say that give me the respect me enough to allow me to make my own choices. Whether it is, like
and
I said.
And that's also feminism.
Yes, whether it's in the clothes I wear or the way I talk to somebody or the language I speak, or whether I want to be a housewife or I want to be a politician or anything. Respect me enough to give me that freedom of choice. I think that's the most important thing that I would ask from anybody.
Thank you so much for sparing the time and talking about all these issues. I think there are many issues that we'll have to take additions to talk on. But thank you so much once again. And here, this was Lalitha Kumaramangalam, the chairperson of National Commission for Women, talking about all the range of issues. Maybe some issues we've left, but we need to address them much more, as we all understand. But thank you so much for watching this particular edition of The Quest on Rajya Sabha TV. Keep giving us your feedback. Thank you so much once again. Namaskar and bye-bye.